Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan CB Steele, and I'll be your nerd today and every day that you watch my show. So today's going to be an interesting day, an interesting episode. We'll do a real quick life in Bryan, and then we're going to get into a very kind of important, but very kind of oddly faceted topic. Some stuff happened this week, and on different things, and it all kind of came together with needing to cover a particular topic. And so, let's get with Life of Bryan first. So it's been a busy week. I've been doing lots of painting commissions. I'm actually painting some Kingdom Death Monster figures for my brother from another mother down in southern Indiana. Very soon, my charity piece for Gary Con, the Gary Con charity, the big Thunderfrost dragon, I'll be getting that here pretty soon, and get to set, brush to model on that. And that should be a ton of fun. If I have a chance and I have the time and the ability to do so, the wherewithal, I'm gonna try and build maybe a complete diorama around it, to get some extra money. Gary Con, the charity that they do is the I don't remember the exact name of it. The game professional game industry assistance fund or something like that. Basically, so if you've been watching this, or if you're a member of the industry, if you've ever heard any of us complain that it's pretty regular for game industry, full-time, freelance, part-time, amateur, whatever, it's pretty regular for us to not have health insurance, life insurance, unless we buy it from an outside source. Very, very rarely do any of the companies in the game industry offer that to their employees, unless they're like a warehouse employee or a full-time on-site or something like that. And what that does is that leaves us very, very open to accidents. Let's say someone's house gets burnt down, or as it seems to sadly happen far too often, somebody comes down with some kind of cancer or a very aggressive form of like diabetes or something like that. And a lot of times that would be the sort of thing that would bury bury an industry member if they didn't have a lump sum that they had set off to the side, or a family member that was getting them insurance or something along those lines. Well, the charity that Luke puts on at GaryCon every year is basically a fund that sets aside money for people in the gaming industry, the game creation process, that fall on these sorts of dire medical circumstances, these dire straits. So every year I like to do, even if it's a year that I can't make it to GaryCon myself, I still want to make sure that I get something in the charity auction and hopefully raise some money for when something like that happens. In fact, when I set up the GoFundMe for Natalie's medical bills, her past medical bills, which I hate to say it, the address will still be in the description of this because we're still not done paying those off. I didn't know that the assistance fund was even a thing. And I'm glad to know it now, should something arise. But anything I can do to help generate those benefits for other game industry people, hopefully, if I were ever in the same situation or a similar situation, that I would be able to draw upon them too. So either way, I'm eager to get that started. Still got a couple other outstanding painting commissions that I got to finish up. But this week I sent in a bunch of pitches to the Dungeon in a Box company to do hopefully some one-off boxes, some like not part of their chain, but kind of like my holiday add-ons that I did. Excuse me. I would like to do more of those little one-stop shop kind of things. I don't know how he'll sell them. I don't know how he'll do them. But I sent over a bunch of pitches for those. Getting geared up for a very cool project with Crafty Games, and waiting on some graphic assistance for some very cool stuff from Big Child. Basically, this week has been a lot of kind of not capture the flag, but pass the baton. It's like, oh, hey, I need this. Once I get this, I can get this, and move down the line. But it also, I can't. I mentioned it last week that I had started to. That I started the wheels on something that could be very cool. Well, those wheels have turned even further, and it is going to be very cool. At this time, I have not been given the green light to discuss it openly, so I am not going to. But rest assured, it's going to be awesome. And if you are anybody who follows me because of my history in miniature gaming, or the kind of the Dark Age scene, if any of you are fans of that style, that type of game, stay tuned. I've got some very, very cool stuff coming down the pipe. I just can't talk about it openly just yet. So either way, it's gonna be awesome, and I'm super psyched. I may be a little sleepless for a while as things start to overlap, but either way, I'm just really, really glad to be part of that project. And then let's see what else. So I am sad to say, I know I give you guys updates on Natalie's employment and her medical condition and that sort of thing. While her art through Artemis has been definitely taken a leap upwards. She just recently finished a very cool piece of Gestalt from The Witcher. And she's got a new piece that she's going to be doing for the GaryCon auction as well, that I am super psyched to get her rendition of. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully people will start snagging up cool prints of her stuff. But while her art has been doing very well, we did discover. I mentioned, I don't know if it was last week or the week before. I mentioned that she had taken a job learning how to repair like string pianos and rejuvenate them and whatnot. It turned out that shop, the piano shop, despite being a very, very cool thing that she wanted to do, there were just too many ups and downs of stairs and back and forth from this building to that building and this building. There was a lot more running around and physically taxing on her legs, which has always been a big problem with her myasthenia. So we did have to sadly let the piano job go, but it has given her the opportunity to increase her responsibilities at the home care services. So she's going to be helping even more people. And it's little things around the house that she's helping them with, shopping, chores, whatever. But I think that she will be very, very happy to be helping others. She always is. She's very hippy dippy in the way that she wants everyone to feel good and be great. And if she can, do something to help someone out, she's always one of the first people in line to do so. So hopefully this job will also scratch that itch for her as well. So that's pretty much been the life of Bryan and Natalie at this point. Um, the let's see. Last week we had an impromptu. Oh, we did some playtesting for the Fallout role playing game. I can't really get into it because of NDAs and things, but we had a good time. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot of oh, the dice betrayed me, a lot of those moments. But it was good. It was a good time. We are eager to see the next rendition of the rules and get to testing those as well. We also got a big game, 5-person game. I wish it would have been 6, but my lovely bride was not able to play that day. Big game of Blood Rage on last Saturday, and I came so close to winning, to getting that last Ragnarok Loki sweep where you get all this extra glory for having a bunch of dead dudes. And my good friend Dan snuck out basically under our noses an extra like 75 glory in the last round by increasing his stats, through little dumb maneuvers that weren't getting him anything, but we didn't care. But I cared at the end because he was able to lap me just a tiny bit and beat me in the end. Whereas I thought I had stolen the win, he stole my stolen win. But easily one of my favorite board games of all time is Blood Rage, and Saturday, just drove it home even further. I love that game. But yeah, and then the rest of the week has been pretty baseline. Thursday night, I'm running my Shadowrun missions-esque adventures at the Tier 1 game store here in town. So that should be fun. And then this weekend there's another big board game night at one of my friend's house. So it should be a pretty eventful and fun weekend. Which is good, because it's been a heavy week full of work and such, and to boot with that, I also had heard just a couple days ago that Neil Catapano, I believe I was saying that right. He was always Warstore Neil. He had passed away. For a lot of you out there, if you've purchased miniature products or some role playing goods from the warstore.com while it was still open, that was Neil's baby for years and years and years. And it's sad to see him go. I know that he had said that his he had some health problems that had popped up at him kind of rapidly, but I don't know the specifics. I don't know what exactly the doctors had said what was wrong with him, but whatever the case may be, he passed away this week, and it's a big loss to the community as a whole. Neil was a very particular individual, very specific in how he did things, and the War Store was always an extension of his ideas for how the retail side of things should work in the gaming industry. And it's sad to see him. It's sad to see him go. I know he closed down the War Store earlier, middle of last year, and I don't know any of the specifics or particulars as to why or what happened, and I'm not going to speculate. All I can say is both he and his business will be sorely missed. And I hope, I'm not a religious person, but I hope that however we go on from there, that Neil's energy is always going to be with us in some fashion, especially for those of us that will always remember the conventions where his stuff's, where they had all the camo netting walls and everything set up, and he's going to be missed. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Neil and his endeavors over the years, and yeah. Which brings us to the T-shirt of the week, and together with the topic for this week. So I'm wearing my Excelsior, my Stan Lee style glasses Excelsior T-shirt from Armor Class 10, the sponsor of our show. And my wife actually, when I showed her this shirt to begin with, she was like, "That's a really sad shirt because his glasses are laying on the ground. Like if they were open, or like the outline of his face or something like that, it would be a happier, more Excelsior, that sort of thing. But because they're laying down, like these glasses have been taken off and set down, that it's kind of sad." And I don't disagree with her, but I also know that Stan Lee left a huge imprint on millions upon millions of people, and to boot, his creations last on forever. He is what most of us industry creatives wish we can be. We want to be remembered after we're gone because of the characters we've created. We want to see other people take a creation that we made and come up with a new direction with it, or picking that flag up and moving it down the field just a little further because they have a cool idea based off of something you created. So Stan Lee. It's no secret I'm a huge DC fan. I love DC stuff way more than anything Marvel has created. But that is not to say that I am not also a Marvel fan, and to know what Stan Lee had done and created and what he represented with the idea of comic book movies, the idea of comic books in other products like board games and card games and things like that. Like his creations inspired others to create more. And I understand that there are other creators that are older, and that he was not the first to ever be like, superhero. He just had a way of making it feel as though he was doing it because he loved it. It was not for the money. It was not because it was a business. It was, he loved superheroes, and he loved putting himself out there, and he loved, getting to hear from people about what they think of his superheroes and their plot lines and their lives. And he was awesome. He was, in fact, one of the biggest reasons why comic books have gotten as far as they have. And his passing was a great tragedy, and not unexpected, obviously. He's an old man. But everybody kind of dealt with it in their own way. And so this week, I actually saw two comic book movies. I saw Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, which is a DC movie, and I enjoyed it a great deal. It is not their best movie, but it was fun, and it tied in seamlessly with the DCEU, and even had a couple of moments that were genuine, like, oh, okay, that's cool, sort of things. And then on that exact same day, I actually saw Marvel's Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the last Marvel movie that happened, I believe. That was the last one that happened before this upcoming Black Widow movie. And it was good. I always have loved the Sony/Disney Spider-Man. And they did a great job with it. I enjoyed it a great deal. And I do think that Disney losing the complete control over Spider-Man is going to be a good thing. Because I felt Disney's fingerprints all over Far From Home way more than I did in Homecoming. And Homecoming is my favorite, probably my second or third favorite Marvel MCU movie. So I felt a lot of Disney fingerprints on Far From Home, and knowing that Sony will have a much better set of controls, and making it part of the Venomverse, blending those in hopefully as seamlessly as they can. I think that's going to be fantastic. Let's see. We were talking about the topic of the week. So between Neil's passing and thinking heavy about comic book movies and what some of their creators, what I owe them, and then seeing a tweet from a friend of mine who was talking about how they deal with the loss of a character, how they personally cope when one of their characters dies, and it created this big long thread about how in most role-playing games, a lot of players don't ever witness, or they don't ever feel the loss of a character, that none of their characters ever die, or it's completely scripted and it's this big deal. Or in certain games, someone dies, but then in the next session they go, "Hey, we saved up enough money to reincarnate them," so poof, they're back. It is interesting. It was interesting to read from all these random role players out there, how few of them have ever, their exact stance is, "I don't know what would happen if my favorite character ever died." And that made me, I don't want to say frustrated, but it did make me wonder just how many times do players or do dungeon masters coddle their players and protect them from death, like keeping them from the executioner's axe, or in the case of like a D&D monster fight, maybe that kobold who doesn't have a ranged weapon won't run over to the next guy to try and stab him, but instead, put a couple of knives in that giant barbarian who went down last round and could get back up to kill people. It just makes me wonder if you get these reactions of, "Oh my god, I put so much of my life into this character, and when they die, I feel that's just been ripped out of me." It just makes me wonder how often do people actually suffer character death in games. How do you as a player deal with that loss? How does your party deal with the loss of potentially a battlefield asset? And on top of all of that is, your DM. How do they then replace that character, hopefully seamlessly, or as seamless as possible, without it being just basically a video game style, "Hey, the next guy came in and dropped his quarters in, and bam, there's a new player." So it takes some doing, some planning and some workarounds. And also, I think there's a power to character death, to character loss. Whether it is because they died in combat, or whether because the player wants to retire the character because they don't like the direction they're going, or maybe they've done everything they want to with that character and they're tired of it. Who knows? Or sometimes the DM has to deal with the fact that a player, like not a character, but the actual player, can't come to games anymore. Whether their work schedule changed, a significant life event happened, whatever. There's a big difference between missing a couple of sessions because you got the flu, or hey, work's having me work late this weekend, so I can't be at game. Than there is to, I don't have time for your game anymore, and I'm leaving, I'm quitting, because then now it's easy to explain away a session or two. Character gets busy, character gets sick, character wanders off to deal with another problem. There's ways to deal with that. But if someone's not going to be there for the foreseeable future, you've got to come up with why. And hopefully in a way that if that player wants to come back, or can come back in the future, that maybe their character's still available to them, or updated version or something along those lines. Whatever happens, you got to remember that the flow and structure of the game is really what's important, not just hey, Timmy couldn't make it to these 3 games, so let's murder his guy and take all his stuff. It doesn't come together that way real well, and I think that some of that, the reason why it is so awkward, and the reason why, you listen to some of these, some of the YouTube shows, the YouTube D&D shows, or the Twitch shows, where so few characters, they get knocked down to 0, or they're put into a tough situation, but so few characters actually ever, because it takes that much extra work to replace them. And you can, but you don't want to just basically do the arcade. All right, player 3 hit the button, you're in now. Player 2 didn't make it, you're in. It doesn't gel together real well that way, and could, in the long run, hurt your story. So you got to try and figure out how to make the most out of those losses. Last week we did or 2 weeks ago we did the making the best out of a bad situation, and I think there are very few. Big yawn from Bryan. What the heck's that all about? There are very few things that can happen in game that can reset the moral compass of a party faster than one of its characters dying. Suddenly either everybody is vengeance bound, or they are, spurning the name of this guy who got himself killed for stupid reasons, and fell down into the well with their special ring attached. Now what are we going to do? There's all kinds of things that could be blamed for the loss of the character, or things can be blamed because the character is no longer there. But it could be turned into an awesome plot point. It could be turned into a badass funeral scene. How cool would it be if we're in the middle of me and my group, we're fighting, my guy gets gacked. Save me, and they can't save me. They can't get to me in time. I failed that last death save. I'm done. And the next session the DM has planned, where while I'm working on my new character and trying to figure out what I'm going to play, he holds a funeral or a wake for that character at the local town. So you get all of the NPCs that can come out of the woodwork and talk about the interactions with the character, or you get some of the players to say things, oh, hey, I remember that time that we did this, and I thought we were going to lose you then, but we didn't. There's all these things that could happen that could really warm a player's heart, especially if it drags up like old stuff that they might not remember. They might not remember. For them, it may have just been a moment, but for this other character, it may have been a big deal. It also gives the chance for the game master to take a breather and figure out what they're planning to do to fill that hole. Get the other players talking, figure out what they can do, throw in an NPC that might offer them some wisdom. When one friend passes, two more. We know that's Hydra. When one friend passes, there's more fish in the sea, or whatever. And I think that you can do you can do a couple of game sessions where your character is being mourned. Like there could be people that they save, depending on what level they are. Maybe the local farmers come out to tribute long lost Stucky because Stucky beat all the goblins away from the crops, and we'll never forget that. We actually survived the winter because of your actions. So I think that's one thing. What I would say don't do is don't internalize. Don't do your best not to take the fact that the character died to personal heart. Just don't have it be, oh man, I lost my character. He's my favorite character. I'll never be able to play anybody as cool as that again. That's not true. Yeah, sure, you might not be able to play somebody as powerful as that, or as rich with magic items as that, or as politically influential as that, based off of whatever game you happen to be coming from. But you can't say that it's a level of cool, because you might be an amazing character this character that just passed might be amazing at everything twice, but the rest of the party hated him because he wouldn't let anybody do anything. And so when he's gone, they celebrate the fact that now they can adventure unhindered without this godly problem-solving machine just standing by. So that's something to think about. And I'm not saying that that a character dies and the rest of the party goes yay, because that's mean too. It's possible, it can happen. You could have a villainous character, a character who's particularly selfish or stodgy, that maybe was getting in the way of other party members or whatnot. But for the most part, when a player character dies or a trusted NPC goes the way of the dodo, for the most part, the players or the rest of the party, the rest of the adventurers, more often than not, mourn them. It's you treat them with a little more maybe you take the remains with you, or if you're out in the middle of somewhere and you can't, maybe you cremate them and bring the cremains with you. Sometimes you need to bury somebody in the middle of your dungeon or whatever. Whatever you choose to do as a party to kind of, I don't want to say goodbye. That's not right. But a way of sort of tying up the end of their circumstance with a bow, unless you are powerful enough where you might have resurrection spells or revivifies or things like that could bring that character back, especially if you do have recent remains. Then maybe it's not even a matter of mourning. If the party is aware that they have the ability to bring back the dead, then it's not even a mourning. It's a, all right, let's strategically plan how to get this. Man, I got a nasty case of the hiccups. It's killing me. To get these to get this character's remains to a temple, or get us ready to cast a spell. We need to cast a spell to bring them back from beyond. There's all kinds of things. If in a game where death is not a big deal, for instance, let's say, I don't know the ins and outs of it yet, but there is a game on Kickstarter right now, made by one of my friends' companies, the Altered Carbon role-playing game. If you've watched that show on Netflix, it's got a big message about death is not really the end. You can be downloaded and put into a new body. As long as like your primary memory parts aren't damaged, you can always get a new sleeve. And so in a game like that, loss is going to be merely an inconvenience, unless it is a permanent loss, and then it is going to be enormous. It's going to be this heavy moment. I'm reminded of in The Lord of the Rings, the fact that the first time that we see an elf on screen get cut down, like dead, it is this slowed down huge moment. And I remember looking at that and going, I wonder how many of those elves that are on the battlements with him, how many of those have ever seen one of their kind die? Everyone always goes to the Western Shores. They leave. Otherwise, they're eternal and they don't get sick. How many of those elves was that their first time seeing elf death? And I think that would be a great scene to have in your game. The first time that a character, especially like a brand new like first level character game, first time this guy sees someone just get straight up murdered. If you're a first level character and you may not have ever seen an orc cut somebody in half with a great axe before, I would love for someone to roleplay that. Oh my god, he did it! He murdered! He killed him! One of those kind of lean into the fact that you until you start adventuring, you're a normal person. How many of us in the normal world have seen someone just straight up get gacked? Not very many. It's pretty far and few between. So dealing with that and kind of, especially with someone, let's say it's someone you knew, either you've been traveling for the last couple weeks together, or someone you've known from the village for a long time. I know, I live in a small town, and if somebody here in town that I knew even tangentially was killed, it would be a big deal, and we as small residents or small town residents, we would all probably be like, hey, wow, that's a thing, I can't believe that happened. And it would become newsworthy. It's one of the things that I think in a D&D game gets often overlooked is killing monsters and whatnot is pretty standard fare, but it doesn't mean that it's something that happens every day. It doesn't mean that it's something that, I love Moral Dilemmas dealing with the killing of sentient monsters. Do you kill them all because they're goblins, or do you use that 5th ed caveat of, I brought you to 0 hit points, I'm knocking you out instead. Then tie them all up and go, hey, goblins, quit being jerks, or whatever you're trying to do. The idea of permanence or a permanent negative situation dealing with a character's death or a player leaving or whatever is something that a game master cannot just wave off. You can't just go, oh, well, they died, move on. Or your game will take on a very strange feel where the player characters, their passings are unimportant. You know, if you're running a game that's based in like the trenches of a war, or there's an active some kind of active conflict that has been taking men's lives, taking the lives of the people around you, and just haphazardly, then you're probably going to look at that kind of death with a different view than you would if someone got knifed in an alley. A natural circumstance or war doesn't make it any less important or any less lasting, but it does mean that it will have less of a initial shock, because, well, if you're on the front lines of a war, you might get killed. That just might happen. And I think that the party, if you were playing a D&D or another style game, but a war style game, where everybody is well aware that you're in you're in a lethal situation. People have been dying in droves on both sides of the conflict and otherwise, that you can't be surprised if fatality happens. You can't be like, oh man, I thought all that death was just reserved for non-player characters. That's unrealistic, and hopefully your game master will abide by that. There is very few things that a game master can do to annoy me directly, and one of those things is effectively making your player characters invulnerable. Because similar to how I have no reason to care one iota about most Wolverine plotlines and Deadpool plotlines, because they heal back from nothing. Bullet to the head's not a big deal. If that's the case, I don't care as much about their outcome, because if they don't like it, they can just choose to stop it and change it and start it back up again a different way, because there's no threat to them in doing so. They can take all the time they want, because no one's going to come in and kill me permanently. No one's going to come in and stop me. And that is where a game master can accidentally make his team into a bunch of like full-on impervious superheroes, because they don't have any consequence. If a game master doesn't have any consequence, i.e. character death, the players will eventually run rampant. They will eventually get to the point where they don't need to care anymore. They're just like, whatever, it's just, oh, I got shot again. Talking about a game mechanic with my employers over at Crafty, we were talking about game mechanics and what we like and don't like, and an anecdote popped up about a guy in one of their older games. Because of how the damage system worked, he knew that there was no way for his character to die if he put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. That the gun's damage, even on a max damage auto crit with super death bullets or whatever, that there was just no way for his hit points to ever get low enough to matter. And I feel that little statement, I mean, obviously, as a DM, I would handle it differently. I'd be like, if you put a gun to your head and you commit suicide, your dude's dead. Then there is... aside from that, there is a point of order that you can't let the rules dictate completely whether or not someone can die. Because if that's the case, if it's 100% in the hands of the rules, the players will know the limitations of those rules, and soon you'll have the guy who runs into the middle of the room and shoots himself for effect, because now everyone's freaked out in the room, and then he gets back up and he's fine because his hit point says so. And that is, I feel that's not okay. Unless you're playing like some kind of crazy superhuman game where, one of you are playing effectively Deadpool, and Deadpool runs out and says, "Hey, I'm stupid and make a joke about blah 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 blah, break the fourth wall, shoot myself." I totally just went on a little mini Deadpool rant in the middle of my statement. Basically, what I'm saying is you while you don't want to necessarily be the game master, or I personally would never want to be the game master that's like TPK, total party kill, total party kill. I don't want that, but I do want my players to be afraid of the consequences. I want them to understand that there are reasons why these seas are empty from boats. There's reasons why going into the Snake Temple without going through the proper quest to get the ring is terrible. Because if they just simply go, well, my game master's not going to kill us, at least not permanently, then you've lost. You've lost control of your game. The players are controlling it based off of your previous actions and reactions. The loss incurred of a very important character. Now, this is I feel this is also a game master thing. Is if your game is so revolved around, like if your game's narrative and your game's plot is so revolved around one player or one player's character, aside from the fact that it's probably going to be pretty nepotistic to do that, and leave yourself open to potentially unhindered players because they're not being watched for this particular plotline or whatever. What you're doing is you're sending a message to your players that everybody but this guy can't matter. Everybody but this guy doesn't matter. That we don't care. What happened to Ted? Oh, they got ambushed by orcs. Ooh, whew, at least Billy's okay. Is that only because Billy is the one that you're focusing the plot on at the moment? Or is it something that the player characters have recognized over several months of gaming that, Billy gets everything handed to him and is now even becoming like the hub of the new plot? Because unless Billy gets killed accidentally, I'm sure, you're going to have a pretty big power differential amongst your player characters, especially if you effectively make one of them immune to the effects of aging, because you want to make sure that these characters can live forever in your plot lines and never really run into any true threats to themselves, that you won't, as a GM, bail them out in some fashion. Deus Ex Machina. But this is one of my favorites, is when a game master has not been taking notes about his characters and what's going on, and he looks at somebody and he has rolled the dice, he's hit them with an attack, and gets ready to roll damage, and looks at the person, and the person, and then asks the person, "Hey, how many points do you have left?" That is almost universally a sign of, I don't want to kill you, so I don't want to say too high when I say what this damage is when this die is rolled. It's a little fudgy, but if you're doing your best to make sure that your players don't die, and you want your game to be basically a superhuman troll where there's no real threat aside from mental or social or environmental. You yourself, when you play next, you're going to be able to walk out of whatever you walked in. Unless you know that that's the case, you are going to need to make sure that your player characters are challenged, that they deal with things knowing that their time is indeed finite. Because again, you also don't want a player who's like, I don't really care about this character. I'll just replace him anyway. So I grab my two-handed sword and I run into the room. You don't want them to be stupid about it either. You want good players doing good things for smart reasons that hopefully tie together with this greater plot. That's the goal. That's what you want. You want characters to want to stick around, and if they go, if they die, if they get dealt with in a situation where they can no longer adventure, or they choose to retire and become a farmer or whatever. All of these things, you want your game to not come grinding to a halt because, oh god, we lost our wizard. But you also don't want your game to go, we'll just get a new wizard. You want to find that sweet spot in between where you do kind of have your moment of mourning for the person who's gone, but you also move forward towards the acquisition of a new member, new friend, and potentially new goals for the group as a whole. So that's a lot of me talking about in-game loss and running my mouth about losing characters. And in some games it's easier than others. Games like Paranoia or Call of Cthulhu, you're expected to lose characters hand over fist. Games like Vampire, Werewolf, it's very rare that your characters even see real combat. A superhero-based game like DC Superheroes or the old school like Marvel Fast Rip, those games you didn't see very many echoed characters, because in that genre, in that world, very rarely do the heroes, i.e. the player characters, just murder the opposition. Unless you're playing Punisher Mark II, it's very rare that you're gonna have Spider-Man just breaking into bad guy houses and killing everybody and being like, haha, the streets are safe. It just doesn't gel right. You've got to be able to handle the gravity of losing an integral part of your group. It just simply is. You've got to be, just like in real life, you got to mourn the loss of others, but you can't let it, put the brakes on your whole existence. Same thing goes with a role-playing game group when one of those characters drops. Now, I'm going to put a little caveat here. I know we're getting close to the end of the show. I'm going to put a little caveat thing at the end here that states very, very explicitly that there are times where player characters want to retire their character. They are either bored with that particular thing, or they've decided they want to play something new and shiny popped up, or it's just a nice narrative wrap on something that was going on in game. Is whatever you do not leave it open-ended for the players to get back involved with the main plot once that character has chosen to turn into swords for plowshares or venture to the Western Isles or whatever your characters do when they decide that they're done adventuring. Is maybe as an NPC you could have them turn back up, but don't give your players the ability to just flip characters back and forth, because it will become a situation where they won't care if their characters live or die. They just simply won't. They'll be like, all right, whatever. My barbarian number 3 will walk through the door here in a second. It's rough. It sucks. And unless you want to be a jerk DM about it and be like, no, you can't bring your 5th copy of the Lexbot here or whatever, is you just got to deal with it. You got to deal with the fact that, there's going to be goons around galore. There's going to be a bunch of weird pigs in this courtyard. Whatever is irritating you because it's being spawned by this this character that's just cranking out random stuff. You need to look at it objectively and go, maybe he's doing this out of grief. Maybe that NPC, that the NPC wizard that just can't be bothered despite, his grandson being kidnapped or whatever. It might be that he's currently in the middle of like a rune spell, or, he's visiting the mysteries of the universe and astral projecting, and, you're here to bother him. Who knows what's going on? Whatever is you want to try and have at least two people who will, in some fashion, mourn your character when they go. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to put so much of yourself into a character. I think this is probably my number one rule. I've had lots of characters die over the years. I think this is my number one rule when it comes to role-playing games, is I hate games where you play yourself. It makes me very uneasy to try and judge my skills. And it also puts horrible thoughts into my dream brain, depending on what you're doing in game as yourself. I had played in a game where someone wanted me to play myself, and then revealed to us that it was a zombie apocalypse game, and they started asking the hard questions. So, who do you eat first, your wife or your dog? That sort of thing. And I was done. I was like, nope, not going to think about that. Not going to think about it. Yeah, it's a little head in the sand, but I'm here to have fun, not to think about my dog going feral and I'm going to put him down. That's awful. And so I looked at that situation through a completely different set of lenses and gave them what they wanted. And then my character never died anyway. So it was never a point. All right, let me get to a point, since I've been kind of running my trap. So basically, don't be afraid of character death. Don't, if you are the kind of game master that's like, the story is more important. I don't want my characters to die. I want them to be there. If you're playing the kind of game where, every time something awful happens, to somebody, something good will happen to them shortly thereafter, almost a direct karmic swing. Or if you're just the kind of person that's like, I like this cast of characters, I don't want to see any of them not be here for the end of my story. If you're any of those things, if you're a game master and you're any of those things, the best thing you can do is learn to hinder your players and punish your players. I don't say punish, but challenge your players and hinder your players in ways that will make them think and challenge their skills, and not just, oh, I found the axe, let's cut down this door. Because it is going to be a little too easy. It's going to be a little too plain and straightforward, and you're just going to go, all right, well, that's how that went. Your players will appreciate more feeling like they have a place in the world and that it would miss them should they go. But also, you want to, if possible, whether it's an NPC or a conveniently killed PC, set those stakes early on. How well and how deeply does death affect your people, your community, your culture, your game? That's pretty much all I got. Is, don't internalize it so much. If you're lashing out personally because your character got killed, you need to take a second, take a breather, and realize it's just a game. And make a new character maybe out of a different facet of your personality. And on top of all of this, just like every other time I've talked to you, the goal is always to make sure that you and your fellow players are having fun. If it's sometimes people like having tearjerkers, where they're all weeping about the death of Dime Store Eddie at the end of the table. If that's the case and everybody's having a good time in their own way, rock and roll. You're dealing with death right. if it turns into 2 players at the table are in full-on drama mode because the character died, and then the one guy at the end of the table is like, I'm a necromancer, I'll just raise him up, it's cool, don't worry about it, the next temple's got to revivify priest, he'll take care of it, don't worry about it, If somebody who has no emotional impact, or no emotional effect because the game rules say that we can bring them back to life, then maybe shock them and don't bring that guy back. Something goes wrong, or they do get brought back, but the local townsfolk are already rioting because you brought this death and destruction into their streets. Whatever you need to do, make sure that the players and the game master, they're all aware of the kind of level of lethality you're talking about and the impact that characters should be having on one another's lives. Because it's going to lead to some really cool role-playing moments, and it could lead to even maybe like having some cool connective tissue to the next set of characters or next character based off of something that this character did, said, or was. Either way, I need to get myself ready to go run some Shadowrun, and you guys need to get ready to start planning to go out there, have some fun, and play some games. Because that is what is important right now. And also, one last time, I want to go ahead and take a moment of silence for Neil from the War Store. You're going to be missed, buddy.